Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday the 10th of July comes to you from London. And we start as always by looking at currencies, and then stock markets, some commodities, and last of all US tech stocks. And so the dollar index is just really testing the support level again, and we are still bearish below the cloud, although we are seeing a little bit of a recovery on Friday and continuing today, but still bearish short and medium term. Looking at the euro, we see here that the euro is recovering long term through the cloud and medium term, so it's bullish on all three time frames, and we've got these upside targets. So euro is just looking better and better all the time. Looking at the Japanese yen, this is the really interesting chart. Dollar strength here, long term transition to bullish, and medium term and short term. So whilst the dollar looks relatively weak against a basket of currencies, it is looking strong overall against the yen. So we're seeing here that dollar strength is coming through, and we might just see that then filtering through against other currencies, but at the moment it's the dollar yen is where we're seeing the dollar strength. British sterling, we see here we're below the cloud on the short-term chart, so that's bearish. We've activated a downside target down to the 126.70 area, where we might find some support. We're still bullish medium term, but the long-term chart is still bearish. And you get sterling euro chart again, 113, so sterling is looking weaker here as well. And against the Swiss franc, much the same thing, below the cloud on the short-term chart. So sterling still looking weak there. And against the Australian dollar, just weaker, although the medium-term chart is just finding some support. But against most currencies, sterling is looking a bit weaker at the moment. US stock markets on Friday did rebound during the day, so we are just seeing some form of recovery, but we're still bearish below the cloud on the S&P, and of course the Nasdaq has been the one that has been worrying us the most. Still bearish in the short term with downside targets of 7 and 4.5%. These percentages just changing each time we do charts today because of the price change. So as the price changes, the percentage target actually increased because of that recovery. So we are still seeing bearish below the cloud here. Bullish in the medium term, and short term, long term is still very bullish, but Nasdaq just not out of the woods yet in the short term. Dow recovering as well, slightly above the cloud, but mixed really, just sideways, really waiting for what happens with tech. And the Russell 2000, again, a broad-based recovery. We're seeing here above the cloud, but not really trending at the moment. So again, we're just waiting for that Nasdaq. Looking at the future, we see the S&P 500 future is up slightly this morning. The Nasdaq E-mini is up 1/3%, so it does suggest that we might see this recovery in the Nasdaq continuing through today. FTSE 100 closed up slightly on Friday, but is still bearish below the cloud in the short term. Medium and long term charts are still bullish, and the FTSE 250 also recovering. The DAX, much the same picture, below the cloud short term, so that's key as well. The Nikkei was bearish below the cloud as well, so markets really mostly looking the same, and the Hang Seng also bearish below the cloud. Up 0.8% this morning though, so we are seeing a recovery in Asia. Looking at Shanghai, we see here that we are just making that transition on the daily chart. China looking bullish more and more, so we are just seeing that recovery. And the Sensex bullish as well. So China and India are really looking very bullish indeed. Sensex now has 3 upside targets, 1%, 6% and 3%. So we are just seeing a big move there. The S&P Australian index still bearish below the clouds. Australia not looking as good. The Brent future, so crude oil just still falling away here, starting this downward leg, looking like it will take out this low at around 44.30, so just keep an eye on that. And if we look at WTI, much the same picture. There is some support there on the short-term chart, but looking like we're embarking on that downward leg, heading into the weaker second half of the year. Natural gas sitting at 289, just can't really get back above this $3 level. So in the doldrums, US nat gas. Copper, quite a good bellwether for industrial reduction, and we're seeing here where it's just bearish below the cloud at the moment. Taking a look at some of the other softs, big moves here in cocoa, down this morning, bearish on all three charts. Looking at sugar, looking bullish short term, but bearish medium and long term. Same as soybeans, looking really quite strong short term with a very strong recovery as well. Wheat has paused for breath after a really big run in June. And then corn, we're seeing much the same thing. It's looking very strong indeed. Gold has been falling quite heavily. It's down another 0.5% this morning, so we're seeing big moves there. Bearish below the cloud now quite clearly. We're in this range with gold, quite interesting, but we're just taking out that May low, so that's not looking good. 3 days below this 1210 level would be bearish. We're at 1206 at the moment. Holding on to the bullish long-term chart just, but the short term is looking pretty dire. A shortage of downside targets is the one thing, and we still do have these long-term transitions potentially still in train. If we take out this 1124 level, 1125, that would be very bearish for gold, so we need to keep an eye on that. And of course silver looking very bearish. It's in free fall this morning, down 2.3%, and again, a shortage of clear downside targets on the short-term chart, but the medium and long-term charts do have downside targets. So that may filter through to gold. We need to keep an eye on that. Looking at US Treasury yields, sitting at 2.38%, just wandering out on the cloud here on the medium term. Will that take us bullish? We've got these upside targets on T-bonds. We're seeing 2.42, 2.49, 2.43. So we are just seeing a move back towards this sort of 2.5% level that we saw in May, as the conviction for interest rate rises in the US increases. Apple just still teetering at this 142 level, so no clear signs of recovery yet. Google still bearish below the cloud as well. Amazon also bearish below the cloud, and Facebook also bearish below the cloud. So downside target here on Facebook of 137, that's 9%, but not activated. Still a lot of upside targets to play for. And Microsoft also still bearish below the cloud. So a lot will ride on how the Nasdaq recovers this week, or do we go lower? Keep an eye out on those tech stocks. Watch for Apple falling through 142. That's going to be the really key bellwether chart to keep an eye on. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.